And we are back with a new episode of the EVP podcast. I am one of the three hosts, Ghosty McGhostface.
And I'm two of the three hosts, DVO.
And you're also going to be Beaker.
Alright, I'm Beaker. Beaker's not here today.
So it's just going to be us two.
He got the coronavirus.
He got the Omicron.
Yeah, so he is not feeling well. He got a little sickly, went to the doctor, and now he's a statistic. Yeah, so he's got coronavirus. So Beaker, this episode's dedicated to you. We'll miss you, my friend. Oh, wait, he's not dead. He's just sick. Okay, he'll be returning. I hope you feel better soon, my friend.
As a zombie?
Yes, as a zombie.
Awesome.
So stop getting sick. Stop kissing boys. And
yeah, that's the kissing virus. You got that kissing Omicron.
Well, Patrick Wilson was in town.
Oh.
For Sundance.
Oh, that all makes sense.
Beaker met up with him. And got the kissing virus of COVID.
Well, alright. This week's episode, I went on a little trip over last week, and I went to San Francisco.
Good old Frisco.
And while I was there, I had to visit The Rock.
I just feel like we should play some background music, like Too Short or
some Bay Area music,
some Drew Down or
some
something
fizz
like that.
shit going on.
Maybe some Drew Down.
Yeah, there we go.
Some E Fizzy.
But so I went and visited Alcatraz, and I figured, all right, this is gonna be the topic of the show.
All right, so The Rock, as it's known, as you mentioned,
Alcatraz
is
having trouble connecting to the internet.
Oh, geez, no one's talking to you.
Where's your speaker going off?
She's in the corner going nuts.
I should have unplugged it.
I should have.
All right, so it was originally built in the 1850s as a lighthouse and military fort. The Department of Justice, the Department of Justice turned it into a prison in the 1930s after the boom of the mob. So the mafia, they were doing a lot of bank heists. Prohibition was just coming out of, and I think that's kind of almost where the mob kind of formed was because during the Prohibition times. And then they just kind of went rampant with bank robberies and different things. So they need a place to really seclude these like high profile bad guys, criminals, So what better place than the old abandoned military fort, about a mile and a half. Yeah, about a mile or 2 miles off of San Francisco is Alcatraz. Alcatraz, by the Native Americans that are in the area, they actually already kind of called it Evil Island. So it's already kind of known.
The Island of the Pelicans. Or no, that's what a Spanish explorer called it.
Yeah, so they called it Evil Island. So it's kind of known to have, I don't know, something happening there. But anyway, in 1934, they built a prison there for these high-profile criminals. And so that was built in 1934. While it was there, it was in functioning from 1934 to 1963 before it was shut down by the Attorney General at the time, which was Robert Kennedy. I think that's the brother of JFK, I believe, right? But while I was there for 29 years, there was also murder happening inside between inmates. There was suicide inside the prison, and there was a lot of inmate abuse from the guards, and there was a 2-day Battle of Alcatraz that happened because of some of the escape attempts, and there was 14 escape attempts during the time it was in operation of 29 years. Out of the 14 escape attempts, 36 men were involved in this. Out of the 36, 23 were caught, 6 were shot dead, 2 were confirmed drowned, and 5 are unknown but believed to have been drowned.
And 3 of those probably got away.
Out of the 5 unknown?
Yeah, those were the that escaped from Alcatraz, the 3 guys that got away.
Yeah, I mean, I know the stories of them, and people have come out and said, yeah, that was us, I still don't know. I still think it's a little, I don't know if they 100% have confirmed.
Well, it's not 100% confirmed because
Yeah.
they got away with it. So
Yeah, but you think at some point, like, hey, I'm on my deathbed, it was me.
Well, they're probably not dead yet.
Or, yeah, I guess maybe, maybe not.
I've been
they were
seeing
super
some
old
things.
then, like, really.
Well, they gotta be old. I mean, I was
like
watching interviews with I was watching interviews with people that were they'd be 70. They'd be like 70 years old
Well, it's been shut down
for
since
50 years.
Okay.
They could have been in their 20s.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So I'm guessing they're in their 70s now or 80s. They can still be alive for sure.
So 5 are unknown, but a lot of people do think they've drowned because I was watching an interview with a former guard, and he said that he would see these 8 or 9 foot logs, like, you know, from maybe trees in the water, and he said those things would just be zipping by, like super fast. So even if you got in this raft or try to swim, like it would just, I guess the currents were just so fast in the San Francisco Bay, because he said. You know, he'd be on guard, just patrolling. He would just see these long logs. He said he was saying 8 to 9 feet long logs, and they would just be cruising because of the current. He's like, I don't think maybe you could swim at 100 yards before you were just swept up.
Well, not just that, but that's like sharky water. That's super super sharky.
Yeah. So,
but the ones that got away, there was like a whole thing about how they could have done it, and. The way that
I'm not saying it's not possible.
Right. The way that they say that they could have done it, which they probably had it all set up, the way that it was so elaborate, the way it was, is they most likely had a little small raft that came out to the island at night. I mean, it's only a mile and a half away. It's not very far. So a mile and a half out, they just bring this little raft with no lights on it, have it just parked out on the rocks somewhere, and then a getaway car parked somewhere on the shore. So as soon as they hop in the raft, the guy driving the raft takes them to their getaway car. They jump off the raft, get in the car, boom, they're gone.
Now you took a ferry out to Alcatraz. Do you think anyone could swim it?
If it was like calm water, yes, it's a mile and a half is very doable for a swimmer. But
For a swimmer.
Yeah. But for your average Joe, especially with how cold that water is, jumping in that shit, you're gonna get hypothermia. Not even halfway out.
Yeah. So it's pretty much for someone that's been locked in prison for years, even like a year or two. They're probably not gonna be able to swim that.
No.
Even how about on a calm day? Would they be able to swim it?
On a calm day, if they don't get eaten by sharks
or hypothermia.
So
it's gonna be very unlikely, right? That someone's gonna be able to swim that.
Very unlikely that someone's gonna swim that and make it.
So I mean, I guess all right. There's quite a few big names that were prisoners there. I'm going to go over the 4 probably most popular ones. So there was Machine Gun Kelly. So he was known for a lot of bank robberies and murders. Machine Gun Kelly. There was James Whitey Bulger. So he was also big into the mafia in like the Boston area. They had the movie about him. He just got caught. Like not too long ago again. He didn't escape Alcatraz. He just was, he did his time in Alcatraz, then went out and did more
Whitey stuff,
and got caught up. And he was on the run for a long time. He just got caught within the last few years, like within the last 3 years.
No, it wasn't too long ago.
Within the last 3 years, he got caught again, and he's been hiding for a long time. He looks so old now too. He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison now.
Call him Cotton now.
Yeah. There was Al Capone, Scarface. If you don't know who he is, you've been living under a rock.
Also a mobster.
Yeah, also a mobster. Probably the most famous mobster of all.
One of the most famous.
Probably him and Gotti, right? Those are probably the 2 biggest names of the mafia. And then Birdman, Robert Stroud. So he was a murderer. He was known for having a short temper, pretty strong guy, and so he spent his whole life was pretty much locked up, and he pretty much lived out his last days out in Alcatraz for the most part. So the most common for. So watching these paranormal shows, when you told me you were going to Alcatraz, okay, you tell us, why did you book a trip to Alcatraz?
Well, we had talked about this years ago, wanting to do this.
Yes, I've been wanting to do it for a long time.
I finally just jumped on and did. I had a friend that was just wanted to go on a trip, and I'm like, I also want to go on a trip. We picked San Francisco just as a meetup area to go hang out, and I was like, well, while I'm here, I'm definitely going to check out Alcatraz. So I did the night tour. I wanted it to be like the night tour and get some really cool, spooky vibes there.
Of the city?
Of Alcatraz.
Of Alcatraz and the city.
Yeah. So I did this, because I did do a ghost tour of San Francisco.
How was that?
It was pretty cool, except we didn't get to go, there was no access to any buildings.
Yeah.
The way it sounded was like, it sounded like we were going to do some investigating because they talked about, oh, we have some equipment for people to use and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, oh, cool, we're going to try some ghost hunting stuff here. It was all outside on the sidewalks, just walking.
Yeah.
And the equipment they gave us is like the one thing that I have right here, the EMF meter with that checks electromagnetic fields and other type of magnetic field. But anyways, that's the only thing they were using. And other than that, they had an S-box like what we have. And it was just all on the sidewalks. But there was one alleyway that was giving off a lot of weird EMF.
Okay.
I didn't use the ones they gave out to everybody. I had my own K2 that I brought. And with in this first little alleyway that we were in, this neighborhood, it was the earthquake that just happened in like 1906.
Oh yeah.
So it was a really bad earthquake that just happened, and everything's kind of already in shambles and a mess. Well, because of that, I guess there was like a farm nearby that held hundreds of the longhorn cattle,
Okay.
and they all got loose.
Okay.
And now these bulls are running rampant through the streets of San Francisco. And there's this alleyway that we were standing in where all these bulls came charging through. And
while you're there.
While we were standing there. No, so all the people that were trapped in this alleyway at the time all got trampled and gored and
oh my god.
like just pretty much all died.
Yeah.
So on top of the ones that survived that
Mufasa.
yeah, they did. So after all these people just survived that earthquake and dealt with coming out of this earthquake, now they get trampled by a herd of these bulls.
These steers.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. I didn't know that.
There were some other things that happened in this alleyway as well, but yeah, so this is this famous alley, and as we're standing there, all the EMF meters are going nuts. My K2 is also going crazy. So I'm kind of walking around trying to find what would be causing the EMF spikes in this alleyway.
Okay.
There are some lights and stuff, so I kind of go near the lights, and there's no difference between being under the lights and away from the lights.
All right.
And then I was just trying to check out stuff. Nothing was making sense as to why the K2s were going. Well, why my K2 was going crazy, but then all these other EMFs were going crazy.
Right.
And then even the guy leading the tour was like, "Wow, this has not happened like this before." And while he's saying that, the street lamp that he's standing next to flickered.
Oh, that's interesting.
And he's like, "Hey, that's never happened either."
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool. Just a pretty cool area of that little thing. But the rest of the tour, it was just kind of. It seemed more of just like a history tour.
Okay.
He wasn't. He did tell a couple ghost stories as he was telling stories of these like a lot of tragedy things that had happened in some of these buildings and why they could be haunted.
Okay.
But not many stories of hauntings.
Right.
That's what I was really hoping for.
Okay, and that was during the city tour.
That was during the city tour,
All
and also not being able to actually investigate a building. Like this tour group didn't have a access and connections with building owners to get inside of these.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, these walking tours, they're great ways to kind of get a perspective of the cities. And you know, obviously, if you're interested in the paranormal, these are also a fun way to just kind of hear stories. But a lot of these walking tours don't really let you do a lot of investigating. Like we talked about when we did the Whaley House, and we went to San Diego and did a tour of Old Town San Diego.
You're doing more investigating outside.
If you are. They don't really have access to the inside of buildings.
So far, the only one that has is the Ybor City.
Okay.
That one, yeah, we did have access to buildings, and that was really cool because that dude actually grew up in Ybor City, and he has connections and knows people.
So, a good rule of thumb is if you're interested in these tours, really like read the what's it called, reviews that people give it, so you can kind of get an idea. Like, am I really going to be doing like any really investigations, or is it more like, hey, we got a couple equipment. You can hold it while we talk, and then now we gotta keep moving along. We're on a time limit here.
But there's also, you're limited on how many different companies do tours in a city.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, I can do this tour, or I can not do a tour.
Sure. I'd much, especially where you've never, like you've been in San Francisco, but you did more like the touristy things. This was an opportunity for you to kind of get a little bit more deep into the city and learn more of the paranormal history.
Well, I felt like a tourist again because I went when I was 15. And I don't remember shit.
Oh yeah, so you're definitely. Yeah, brand new.
So it felt like everything did feel brand new. I don't remember anything.
I mean, I was probably there maybe 12 years ago, so more recent than you. But I bet it's a lot different from when I was there. Because you were there like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I was there like 12. And I bet from when I went into today, I bet it would be different experiences.
Sure, for sure.
That's what happens.
Yeah, things change.
And then, so did you do that first, or did you Alcatraz?
Alcatraz first.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to Alcatraz, and then unless you anything else you want to talk about with the city tour.
No, the city
Okay.
tour is cool.
All right. So why has Alcatraz been on your list? Like it's been on my list.
It's a well-known area of knowing that a lot of paranormal could get trapped there. Just with all the emotions that have gone on there.
Again, the murders,
the
suicides,
gone on there.
abuse from guards to inmates.
So it was one of those places where I was always like, I would love to be able to go spend the night there and investigate.
Oh, that'd be so awesome.
But the best I could do was a night tour.
Okay.
So
No. When you get on the ferry, you told me that they do a circle around the island.
Yes.
How does it look from that perspective?
Okay.
How's the size look?
Because
Again, I've been to San Francisco. I've seen Alcatraz
how
Island
the whole
from the
thing works.
bridge. It doesn't seem too big from the bridge.
It's not very big.
Okay, so even when you get close around the ferry, it
Right,
still
you can
doesn't
tell
seem
the
too big.
size. It's the whole island itself is about 22 acres.
Okay.
So it's good size. It's
Yeah.
a big size. It's like the size of a good cattle ranch.
And again, speaking of that, like I've seen it from Golden Gate Bridge, and I feel like I'm a good swimmer, and I don't think I can make that swim.
When you're at the island looking back at the city, it looks doable.
Okay, all right.
I mean, it doesn't look. A mile and a half is not that far.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, so how the whole tour worked was we get to the ferry about 3:00 ish. And then they do the whole boarding thing. You get on the boat and then you the ferry circles the island first. Because you come straight on at it, pretty much right where the docking area is.
Okay.
So instead of going right to the docking area, they loop around it and then come
Makes
back.
sense, yeah.
So that way you get a whole view of the island. It looks creepy.
Okay.
It was a beautiful day too. Sun's out, clear skies, no winds, and the city. You look back at the city, and it's all beautiful. You can see both Bay Bridge and Golden Gate Bridge, and it's the best. It's a really good view.
Nice.
And then you look back at the island, and it's just looming doom.
Yeah.
It's
I have
the music changes. You're looking at the city. It's all beautiful birds, and then you turn around at the city, and the music changes. Boom.
Because I've seen the paranormal shows of them investigating, and that's what comment that comes across as, oh, you know what? The inmates had a pretty good view.
Yes. Oh my God. So we had a view of the sun setting from the island, and man, oh man, I'm gonna show this view to you.
And when you pull that up, going back to the inmates like Al Capone in previous jail cells that he was in, he was also known. He was also known to really have a cushy life in these other jail cells, Al Capone, because he paid off the guards or things like that. Because he was making equivalent to I don't remember what it was, $60 million a day or I don't remember the number.
He had it easy.
Yeah,
in
he had it
every
easy.
location.
But when he got moved to Alcatraz, he called it hell because it was so terrible. Okay, let me see this view.
This
So this view that you're showing me
is from the island.
Okay, from the island. Okay,
That's the Golden Gate.
That's the Golden Gate.
And there's the whole city.
And there's the city.
And then if you go right here, that's the bay.
That's from San Francisco to Oakland.
Yep.
Bridge.
So that's the
very
bay
cool.
bridge.
You have to post that on our social media.
How dope was that view?
It is a nice view, yeah.
And so that's what the prisoners get.
Yeah. Good for them.
Yeah, they deserve that.
They deserve that. They deserve a beautiful view.
But so we get to the island, and
so if you basically live there, what are you considered as?
Island boy.
Island boy. Sorry, I had to.
So, we get to the island and we get off the boat, and we first meet with a tour guide who takes us into certain points before we actually get to the prison.
All right,
and they're just kind of telling us a story as they get to each point.
So let me ask you this: so the island's 22 acres. How much is the prison taking up of that? Because again, I've seen shows and videos and people's tours, and it looks like there's a lot of walking around space. Because again, this was a military fort. They just built a prison.
Probably there. 6 acres of it, maybe. Because there's other things on the island.
Yeah. There's a lot of walking space.
There's a lot of housing for the guards, so the guards could actually live on the island.
So they were.
They were island boys.
Okay.
They're having island babies.
Got it.
So, they had housing there, and they had other buildings there, because it was more than just the prison. The prison actually, one of these buildings got like turned into the prison later.
Yeah, it might have been like a barracks or something.
But this island itself is just so like rocky and uneven that I'm surprised they even try to build stuff on it.
Yeah, again, the videos I've watched of people taking the tours, it's yeah, you can see like a path people are on, but then you see like another level where there's more people on there, because you can tell it's very uneven the way
And
the paths are.
even the whole city of San Francisco is so hilly and steep that I can't believe people even want to live there.
Okay.
Like just walking up and down some of the streets, I would never do this on a daily basis.
You get shin splints.
And people like stack on top of each other wanting to live there. Like they moved to the city for this. Like why? Like get me out of here. But yeah, the terrain is so up and down, so hilly. But yeah, the prison doesn't take up not even half of the island.
Yeah.
The prison yard itself, we were able to look out on it and check it out. It was, man, like, so if you were out on the prison yard, you had the coolest views.
Right.
But yeah, they just kind of hung out there. But I think they played handball or whatever. But yeah, it was. We did an audio tour after we did the tour guide, who did like 3 stops along the path. Like you walk up a certain way, stop. He tells about this certain area. Then you walk to another point, they stop and talk about that. And I could see why they do that. Especially telling the history about these different buildings, but also because it's a steep ass walk. So probably to kind of limit people from going, hold on, I need a rest.
Okay.
They kind of just do it this way. And I did notice, because there was multiple tours going on, and I thought I might have done like the last tour, but even after my tour, and we were coming back, there was another tour just barely going. I'm like, what? But that tour, I was hearing their stories. Those stories were cooler than the stories we were being told.
Really?
Yeah, like the stories we were being told was like, oh, this is where the housing was, where the prison guards' families could be, and talking about stories about their kids and their kids living there on the island full of prisoners and stuff. And then I hear the other tour guide later on our tour was leaving, and he's talking about, this is the barber shop, and this is where this guy was cutting this guy's hair and stabbed him in the neck. Like, I wanted this tour.
Yeah,
this is the tour I wanted.
Yeah, it's true.
But anyways, when you break away from the tour guide, they give you an audio tour of the prison, and they give you kind of like the cell phone thing.
Okay.
And you hit start on that, and you hold it up to your ear, and you walk around, and it's telling you where to go. And that got kind of annoying, having to hold that up to your ear the whole time. It's funny because the narration is done by ex-prisoners and ex-guards.
That's what I've heard, yeah.
And we were making fun of the narration by one of the prisoners who was doing that, because as they're talking to you and telling you about things, they're telling you now, look to your left. If you look here, blah, 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 blah. But the way the prisoner was doing the narration, he was sounding like a prisoner. No, go left. Turn around. It's like doing all the way they was talking and like barking orders at you instead of like a tour guide. That was pretty funny. But anyways, you kind of go around. You get to check out like the different cell blocks, and you got to visit like the solitary confinement.
Okay.
And then one thing I was hearing about is on these old tours that you were actually with a guide the whole time through the building, and not doing the audio stuff. Now it's just all the audio stuff, and you're kind of left to kind of roam and figure things out on your own. Afterwards, you're able to kind of just like walk around the island and check it all out afterwards until it's time for you to meet back at the ferries.
Okay.
But
and do they do investigations there?
Not that I could find. I
Okay,
cannot find.
That's something you were probably looking into.
That's what I was looking for.
Settled for the tour.
I settled for the night tour, and I didn't even get the good one. Come to find out.
No.
But it seems more like the tour guides themselves are, because they're all like the park rangers.
Okay.
And it almost seems like those guys like pick and choose what stories they want to tell about these certain areas, and we just got the dork.
All right.
He's telling us all.
Now you did bring some equipment with you.
I brought my K2 with me.
Okay, and so you were able to like you're telling me you only have like free reign around at certain points.
Yes.
But you really couldn't do good investigations.
No. There was a lot of people walking through. I mean, you could walk into like a prison cells, and there would be like nobody down this hallway at the time. But within a matter of seconds, it could be full of people.
Yeah. Okay. And there's too much interference. You know,
a lot of people.
A lot of people talking. So really, even if you did get something, it's too hard.
It could be people talking down the hallway
and just was echoing through. So
yeah.
So unless you have like a TV show, you're not getting.
Yeah, it's a national park.
Private.
It's a national park now, so yeah, you would definitely need a lot of like.
A national park, or just like historic.
No, it's a national park.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's a national
the
park.
island is a national park.
Yes.
Interesting.
Island Park.
So, what are some like the most famous like paranormal stories? Because obviously we're a paranormal podcast, not a tour guide here.
So, I was asking some of the park rangers there, walking around, and like, hey, do you have any ghost stories about here? They're like, oh yeah, we know about ghost stories, but I haven't had any personal experiences. It's like, oh man.
I want a new.
Well, I was walking. There's park rangers walking around the place,
okay.
So I was kind of stopping. I stopped a couple of them to ask them, and neither one of them had their own stories. But just walking around checking things out, the history there is really cool. And watching some of the ghost stories from other shows. Both Ghost Hunters, the ghost show Ghost Hunters, and the show Dead Files. They both had a person telling the exact same story. Two different people, but telling the exact same story about when they were on a tour there. One of them, he was an adult when it happened to him. The other one was like, he was a 13-year-old when it happened to him.
Okay.
And back then, they were inside the prison doing tours with the tour guide in the prison. And they got to the solitary confinement area. And how it is now, you can't go into the cells in the solitary confinement. There's two sets of doors. There's the metal bars that they close, and then after the metal bars, there's like probably a 2-foot gap, and then actual doors that close and blacks out the whole room. So, just the doors that black out the room are what's open, but the bars are closed, so you can't actually go into them anymore. But back then, you could, and what the ranger would do would be like, who wants to go in there? They'd pick somebody, they'd put them in there, they'd close the bars, and then they'd go out and then close the door so it blacks it out so they can experience solitary confinement. And both of them had the exact same story, that as soon as it blacked out, they had a hand grab their shoulder simultaneously as a voice in their ear says, "You're mine now."
Can you imagine you're in a concrete...
Nobody was in there.
4x4? What do you think it is?
No, like 6x9 maybe. Maybe if that, I don't know.
6x9 in cement, and you're by yourself, and they're going to close the doors, and there's going to be no light, and you feel pressure on your shoulder.
You feel a grab on your shoulder when nobody's there. Nobody's in this room. It's a concrete box you're in. Nobody's in there but you. As soon as the lights go out, grab your shoulder. You're mine now.
What would you do?
I'd be like, no, you're not, bitch.
Like, bring it on.
I'm like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. that's what you'd hear from me.
Do you know who I am? I'm an island boy.
But one of the guys,
I'd be freaked out.
So the adult, he said in his story, when that happened to him, he said he was banging on the door, screaming, "Let me out, let me out."
Yeah.
And they let him out, and he said he was just freaked. The guy who was a kid at the time, he said that he was just like pale, didn't want to talk about it. He said he didn't tell anybody about it for a long time because he was, and he said he was almost like embarrassed because of how freaked out he was.
Wow.
Because he was like, nobody was there. Just almost embarrassed that happened and he couldn't explain it.
Yeah.
And so how did he explain it to somebody?
Right.
So he said he held on to that for a while before he talked about it.
Oh, it's intense.
But what was weird was that it was the exact same story.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
Then there's another story about solitary confinement. There was a guy who was thrown in there and just freaking out and was saying that there's these glowing eyes in there, kind of like these.
Like their logo.
And that it was like threatening him or hurting him. And the guards were like, nah, this guy's just going crazy. and he was like freaking out for hours. And then they said they found him one morning strangled to death.
Oh wow.
And all the wounds that he had, as well as the strangulation, they could not deem those as self-inflicted. They're like, these are not self-inflicting. So they're saying that this thing that was in there with him, this maybe could have been a spirit that could have done it to him. My thoughts as a person looking at realism here, guards probably just had it with him and just beat his ass.
Okay.
Because if he was freaking out,
Again,
like
there was a
guards. There. These guards don't like. I'm pretty sure they were just like they had a chip on their shoulder, and they just had it like just built up aggression, and they take it out on the inmates.
And again, these inmates are known as like the worst of the worst. They just needed. They didn't want to be put in other prisons because they just were causing too much trouble. So it's almost like you have like that feeling like, hey, who cares about these prisoners? Like no one cares about these prisoners.
When the Dead Files, the medium was there at Alcatraz, and she was talking with the spirits there. She was saying that the spirits of the inmates were saying that the guards were worse than they were.
Sure. And as I heard that a lot. Again, Al Capone was saying this is the worst prison he's been to. Another high-profile prisoner. I didn't really know who he was, but I guess he had written a book about just detailing how terrible it was in Alcatraz. So yeah, a lot of prisoners just were like, that's why they wanted to escape. They're like, hey, I'd rather risk jumping in that water and getting out of here than being here anymore.
Yeah, just because it was that shitty.
Yeah.
So solitary confinement, they said that they would be in there for weeks to months at a time, and they would get 1 hour a week to go outside their cell.
Oh, geez.
A week. In the audio tour, one of the guys, the inmates, was saying what he would do to pass time was as soon as he got in there, he'd pull one of the buttons off his clothing, and then he'd just flick it up in the air, and then listen for it to land, and then spend however long it took for it to find it again, just to do it again.
Time.
Just to waste time. One other guy said that the way he was able to keep track of time was by what food they were eating. Certain days were certain things, so when he knew he got this certain meal, it was that day.
Like, oh, it's sliced cheese day.
No, it was
Must
like
be Tuesday.
It was like peas and carrots with a raw onion.
Oh, jeez. Gosh.
Oh, it's Monday again.
Yeah, prison's not for me. I can tell you that right now just from these stories.
And then the Birdman. Do you know much about the Birdman?
Yeah. I mean, not a lot. So Robert Stroud, he had. I heard story. I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know too much about him, but just how wild he was. They had to like separate him from everybody.
Yeah, because I guess he could really he could
stir up a lot of issues.
Like he would just talk to people, get them all riled up. He would like coax people into fighting and starting riots and things like that. And I guess he was really strong. He would like reach out and try to grab people and hurt them, and he was pretty violent. I know he killed somebody. That's why he was in jail. He killed somebody maybe with his bare hands. I can't remember, something like that. But I'm not 200%. Know about him.
And then there was also a riot that happened. Alcatraz.
Battle of Alcatraz.
Battle of Alcatraz, and that he ended up killing 2 guards and a few inmates.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that
it was basically a battle between guards and inmates.
Oh yeah, so that was just a whole lot of stuff. And this place was only a prison for a matter of 20-something years. 29 years that this was only a prison for, and so much had gone on there.
And that's why they shut it down.
Exactly.
It was after the last escape. What was happening was the one of the last escapes, they were using spoons from the cafeteria and they were digging through
tunnels,
the walls, through tunnels. What was happening was it's on an island over the Pacific Ocean, salt water, and it's been kind of seeping, and then you got air, things like that. So basically, the salt is eroding.
It was getting
the buildings
too expensive.
So at some point, the bars were so strong you couldn't file through them. Like because they could have ways to get access to maybe hacksaws or things like that. But the way they reinforced these bars, you couldn't get through it. Now with the escapees, they did something where they did some with leverage, and they were able to kind of pop the bars with leverage. One of the escape attempts as well. That ended up with 4 people and 3 were shot dead. But yeah, you couldn't like really cut through. So yeah, they just kind of dug through the cement because the cement had just absorbed the salt and just deteriorated. It was just basically crumbling, and that's why they said, okay, it was going to cost millions to put it up to code. I guess you could say it was going to cost millions. So that's when
They just
Attorney General Kennedy just closed it down in 1963. And so now with the history of it, now that you know the history, now that you've been on a tour, you've heard some stories, is this still on your to-do list, basically, for investigations?
To investigate it, yeah, I would still like to investigate it.
What do you think of the tour? Would you recommend? So would you recommend paranormal investigators take this tour?
Not if you want to investigate it. It's
Okay.
a cool tour if you want to learn the history and kind of map it out and kind of get.
But they don't
an
really talk
idea.
about the paranormal at all during this tour,
No,
right?
not at all. I couldn't even find a tour that did like ghost stories for the tour.
Okay.
So the best I could find was a night tour.
Yeah. So now, from like doing this doing the research on Alcatraz, listening to your stories, watching some paranormal shows that did it on Alcatraz, and I've seen them, years in the past. I've seen these shows. I definitely, I got a little discouraged. Like, this is not that cool of a paranormal hotspot. But then as I'm thinking about it more, I'm like, it's because you're just taking tours. It's a history tour is what it really is.
Exactly.
It's a national park tour.
Yes.
That's what these are. Is it haunted? I think there's a possibility.
Yes.
Now, watching these paranormal shows, they really try to spin it like they're talking to Birdman. They're talking to Scarface. I don't think you are. It's a possibility that they could come around to it. I don't think they're maybe hanging out there, but there's a possibility that they do come around it, their spirits. I think these shows maybe are not getting them. And I know they want to stretch it so it gets a lot of views and hits and stuff like that. But I do think because of, again, the abuse, the suicides, the murder, I think there's a potential for the paranormal. And I think to really experience it, you've got to have access to it as a paranormal investigation.
Right, and just like any paranormal investigation, you might not get something, or you might get something cool.
Right. But I think there's a high probability that it's haunted.
Yes, which I think there's a lot of spirits there. I think a lot of the spirits that got murdered there are still there. One of the cool EVPs that ghost hunters got.
Yes.
They got this one where
it was very breathy. I had a hard time hearing it, but the way it correlated was interesting. So go ahead.
Very, very cool. It were these whispers in between them talking amongst themselves.
Yeah.
So as they were talking to each other, there were these breathy words coming through their talking, and you could hear the word Harry. Then you heard the word brunette.
And I was thinking dirty. I'm thinking.
Well, I'm thinking they're talking about like, just descriptions.
I think they're describing someone that was had a lot of hair. They were hairy. They were a hairy person.
I'm thinking, they're describing somebody, and then they say these numbers 3, 4, and then 3, 7, and then you hear this other like a breathy tone.
Another syllable.
Yeah, but you can't make it out. They have the guy,
the guard,
one of the guards.
I guess
he was a tour guide.
He's a tour guide. There we go. Yes.
They have him listen to it, and he hears the 4.
Yeah.
So it's 374. Well, when they pull up inmate number 374.
Yeah, or cell number, something like that.
No, it's prisoner number 374. His name was Harry Brunette.
Yeah, so his name was Harry, like short for Harold.
Yeah, so his name
I thought they were saying like Harry, like they had a lot of hair.
Yeah, Harry and Brunette. I'm thinking descriptions. But no, his name was Harry Brunette.
Yeah.
His prisoner number is 374. And that was, and he died in the Battle of Alcatraz. He was one of the prisoners that got killed.
Yeah. So that I for me that EVP was a stretch, but how it correlated was very interesting.
It wasn't a stretch; you could hear it, but the way that they were able to capture that in between them talking to each other, that was pretty cool because they were even able to catch that.
Yeah.
But how it correlated with where they were, the name, full first and last, as well as his prison number. That was badass.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
And then Amy Allen from what's it called? What's her show called again? Dark Files?
Dead Files.
Dead Files.
She's the medium.
Yeah, she's the medium. She ended up doing a sketch of the Birdman.
Yeah.
Because apparently his spirit is there,
Right.
and that's one of the spirits that she was talking with.
She was calling him the Monkey Man because he was very loud. He was
Um,
very boisterous
and I don't know if it was the Birdman who they were talking about in this situation, where whenever he would shower, I don't know because they didn't depict this in the Birdman movie whatsoever, but whenever he would shower, they had to lock all the other inmates up just for him to shower, because he was so violent and aggressive, he would be trying to rape other inmates while they were showering.
Get over here. Get that soapiness over here.
And then another murder that happened where it came to the barbershop one, after the prisoners killed the other prisoner, I guess they were lovers.
Yeah.
And after he killed him, he leaned over and kissed him and said, "I love you."
Yeah, after he killed him.
Yeah, after he killed him. That was wild. Whole lot of craziness going on in there.
Something like that where I don't know how torturous it is when you think, okay, you have a beautiful view of the city, but also like freedom is just right there too. Like you're reminded how close you are.
They also said that they could hear New Year's celebrations.
Oh, sure.
There was a New Year's celebration. I can't remember who would throw it, but there was a big party at one of the buildings.
Yeah.
And it would be so loud that you could hear the people partying and talking from there all the way on the island.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, because it'll just echo across the water. You know,
yeah,
the noise
just
of
the sound just going.
Yeah, it'll just travel. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. Yeah, so for me, like, Alcatraz is still on my list, but it'd have to be where you're paying for an investigation. I actually now, I'm not too interested in the tour. I mean, actually, I would do it. It's just not wouldn't be on my top
You can
list.
do the tour from home. You can definitely do the tour from home. It's cool seeing it in person. The view, like I said, being there and looking back at the city and seeing Frisco, seeing both the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge from that one point.
I would like to do something like at dusk. Get on the ferry, get some like fresh seafood, do a drive on the ferry out into the ocean, go around the island, and then come back.
You can do that. They have ferries that'll do stuff like that.
I'll just go around and come back.
They got dinner ferries and stuff like that.
Well, there we go. See, now I'm interested in that.
So you do the dinner ferry.
There we go. There we go. We can get some ferries, and we're
take us
go
some ferries.
together.
But the tour itself, cool history stuff, cool actually being there. But if you want to experience like paranormal stuff, yeah, definitely, you're not going to do it on a tour.
Yeah.
You would have to do that on your own.
Which they don't do yet, but somehow we got to coax them into it.
Like, some people have done it in the past. If you know people.
Right.
I know some people said, "Oh, my dad was a blah 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 there at night. So he let us spend the night there." I'm like, nah, that would be cool.
Yes, exactly. Now, that'd be fun. To, like spend the night, just get as much evidence as you can. That would be awesome.
But yeah, that was my tour of Alcatraz.
All right, very cool. So yeah, not a lot of well-known paranormal stories. It's just so many tourists going through. Most of it is from tourists. That's basically, there's just tourists having some little things here and there. It's hard to tell.
Oh, you know what? Let me tell you about this. I did try to stay at a haunted hotel as well. So when I was booking my hotel, I was looking for ones that were known to be haunted.
Okay.
Being in San Francisco, you would think most of them are haunted anyways. They're all old as shit, and there's been a lot of stuff going on. So I found this one that was on this list. I get my room there. I'm checking in.
Real quick before you do that, because if you think about it, during the gold rush, there's going to be a lot of people that got gold. People trying to kill them for their gold.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of potential history. You're right. So keep going.
So yeah, even after all that, after it became a city, it was just there was mafia there. There was a lot of the Chinese gangs there.
Oh right. Yeah.
There was a lot going on there. Whole lot.
Then they bring a lot of like the Chinese over there as slaves for the gold rush.
Yeah. So
a lot of them stayed. And there's gangs. Yeah, right. So yeah, good stuff there.
So there's a whole lot of history, whole lot of deaths there. There's a lot of stuff going on in the past.
So good potential. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So I find this one that's on the list, and I book a room there, and I'm checking in, and I'm asking. It's called the Chancellor Hotel.
Okay.
And the lady checking me in, she's worked there for 12 years. It's like, awesome. What do you have any ghost stories here? I'm like, so is this haunted? She starts laughing. So there's a lot of stories about the place. I'm like, well, do you have any of yourself? She did not have any of her own.
Okay.
She's like, I've never had anything happen. I'm like, you've been here 12 years and nothing. It's supposed to be haunted. But she did say the only thing that she
The thing is,
did,
if she worked the front desk the whole time, she's not gonna get much.
right.
Stuff happening.
But working the front desk her whole 12 years, the only thing that's ever happened to her was, it was the middle of the night, and she doesn't work nights anymore. This was a long time ago. A guy came running down and demanded a refund.
Okay.
And was like, I can't stay in my room. So what? There's a guy floating above my bed.
Oh, jeez.
So what? So yeah, there's a guy floating above my bed. I'm not going in there.
Wow.
Of course, when they went in, nothing was there.
Of course, right.
But yeah, they just checked him out. And then
Okay.
she said another lady who was staying there, I guess she was some model and was doing some photo shoots or whatever. I can't remember what happened to her, but she was like wanting to check out and wanting to go to a different hotel. And she was all pissed because she was like, this hotel's haunted, I can't stay here, I need a new hotel, and was trying to check out of this hotel and go to another one, and was like an absurd hour.
Okay.
But anyways, there was another guy there. So when she was like calling to like other hotels, the guy that was there was like, lady, you're in San Francisco, they're all haunted.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then she said that pissed her off even more. She just left.
Well, done with the city then.
So that was it when it came to the hotels, trying to find a haunted hotel.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
But when you look at them, yeah, they all have potential.
Okay.
But yeah, that was it.
Okay. Real quick, I want to talk about last week's episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, you probably kind of got what happened. But there was a little period where we all sort of kind of went off on a little thing, and we all got kind of spooked. So just to tell you guys, just kind of be more clear, because as I was listening to last week's episode, we weren't too clear of what happened. So we're in the studio recording, and if you're watching on YouTube, you know.
Oh, we didn't clarify that?
I think it wasn't too clear.
Okay.
So I do want to clarify. So Ghosty and myself sit on the ends of the table, and Beaker sits in between us. So I'm at the end, and Ghosty has some things hanging up here. It kind of helps block out noise, right?
Yeah,
So,
it helps.
it helps block out some noise.
I try to keep it full.
and the door was maybe like halfway open, and so Ghosty's daughter. We're recording Ghosty's house, and we have a little studio here. And Ghosty's daughter, she's getting ready for bed. So she kind of came in, and so she kind of popped in again. This was about midnight. And so she came in and closed the door so she can get ready for bed so she doesn't hear us talking. And Ghosty got spooked because he saw his daughter kind of... What'd you see?
Well, so we're looking here at the
your
camera.
angle, you see better the whole door.
Yeah, I seen it all happen, but it just spooked me out because I didn't expect anything to
At
pop
midnight.
out at midnight because we're the only ones here in the house, and
Yeah.
then I'm thinking my daughter's probably asleep already.
Right. We're just in her room.
Yeah, just in a room. So I was not expecting for any reason anybody
Yeah.
to come walking in here. So she just kind of pops in, grabs the door, and then closes it. But just being in my peripheral and it happening as sudden as it was, it startled me.
Sure.
But like, you know.
And at the time, I was talking, and I don't see the whole door. I can just see the things that you have hanging here for the noise.
Uh-huh.
I can just see the bottom foot of the door, and all of a sudden in my peripheral, I see the door closed. But I wasn't sure if something darted, and so I'm thinking something's like a foot tall, darting, and I knew where your dog was, and I was just like, I was talking, I was in mid sentence. And I'm seeing this in my peripheral, and we're talking paranormal stuff, you know what I mean? And I just see the door closed, but I think something's darting. You're seeing your daughter pop in. You're not expecting to see a person's face come through. And we all kind of like, whoa, what just happened? And so...
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So that's kind of what happened last week. If you didn't really grasp what was happening, we just kind of got spooked. That's what it was. We just kind of all had different perspectives of what was happening, and we kind of had to piece it together real quick.
Yeah, that was...
I maybe because I saw the least amount of door, I think I might have been the most freaked out, and so I was trying to grasp what you guys were explaining. I'm like, okay, it was Dale's daughter, or it was Ghosty's daughter, and okay, I'm getting it now.
Yeah, that was funny though.
It was funny. Because I got freaked out. Yeah, it was funny. All right, we'll be back again next week. Hopefully, Beaker will be joining us. He's in quarantine
Yeah,
now.
stop kissing all the Omarion crons.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Ghosty, don't play that.
Peace out. Butter.
Bums,
Flies.
butter bums.